The AMX-13 light tank made by France after World War II is one of many examples of post-war military innovation. We recently talked about the Soviet Su-9, which was also a post-war game-changer. The French AMX-13 was built to be small, fast and still powerful, while working as both a scout and a fighting vehicle. With more than 7,700 units produced from 1953 to 1985, it was sold to 35 countries and used by their armies. Its flexibility and ability to be customized for different roles made it a big success for both France and the countries that bought it. The history of this light tank is very interesting and worth looking into. Also, this is actually the first video I'm making about a French vehicle. Anyways, hello and welcome and enjoy this video. During World War II, France wanted to rebuild its military strength. They started taking this task seriously in 1944 after they got liberated, when the French military launched a program to rearm its forces using their own technology. By 1945, the French military had decided they needed three types of vehicles: a main battle tank, a light tank, and an armored reconnaissance vehicle. The AMX-13 was developed from this plan, designed specifically to be a light tank with a focus on speed, flexibility, and strong firepower. In 1946, the Directorate of Armament Studies and Manufacturing came up with an early plan for a light tank. While other countries were focusing on heavier tanks, France wanted a vehicle that was fast and had strong firepower rather than thick armor, kind of like the Germans with the Leopard 1. The French military wanted a 12-ton light tank with a high-speed gun that could be transported by air and used for scouting and anti-tank missions. Four companies submitted designs, and by 1949, AMX, standing for Atelier de Construction d'Issy-les-Moulineaux, or in English, Construction Workshops in Issy-les-Moulineaux, won the contract to develop what became the AMX-13. One of the coolest and most unique things about the AMX-13 was its oscillating turret. This special turret design made it possible to fit a long-barrel high-speed 75mm gun, which was later upgraded to 90mm and even 105mm in newer versions. This allowed the tank to stay small, while still packing the kind of firepower you would usually see on much bigger tanks. The AMX-13 was powered by a Mathis 8-cylinder petrol engine producing around 250 horsepower. This gave the 13-ton tank a top speed of 37 miles per hour and a range of about 250 miles. The driver sat at the front of the vehicle next to the engine, while the turret with the 75mm C and 75-50 gun was placed at the back. The gun was inspired by the German Panther's KW-K42 L70 cannon, but not exactly the same. It fired armor-piercing rounds at a speed of 1000 meters per second and could penetrate 175mm of armor. To handle this long gun, the French used a special oscillating turret. Instead of a typical mantlet, the gun was attached to the roof of the turret, which made room for an autoloader system. The autoloader had two carousels, each holding 6 rounds, allowing the AMX-13 to fire 12 rounds before needing to reload. Spent casings were ejected through a port at the back of the turret. This system meant the turret only needed 2 crew members, the commander and the gunner. The third crew member, the driver, sat in the hull. The AMX-13 was also armed with a coaxial Mag-31 7.5mm machine gun. The turret had cast armor that was about 40mm thick at the front and 15mm on the sides and rear. This armor was only strong enough to protect against small arms fire and shell fragments, but not larger caliber rounds. After testing several prototypes between 1949 and 1950, the French military officially adopted the AMX-13 in 1951, and serial production began. The initial batch of 135 tanks rolled off the production line in 1952, with full-scale production continuing until 1985. During this time, the tank underwent several upgrades and its chassis was adapted for multiple roles, including self-propelled guns, anti-aircraft systems, and armored personnel carriers. The AMX-13 had an autoloader which let the turret hold 12 rounds ready to fire without needing manual reloading. But once those 12 rounds were used, the tank had to pull back to a safe spot to reload, since it was a slow and tricky process that couldn't be done during a fight. While the autoloader was a cool feature, it was also one of the tank's downsides in longer battles. The AMX-13 was used in a lot of conflicts worldwide. It first saw combat during the Suez Crisis in 1956 when both French and Israeli forces used it. In Israel, the AMX-13 played an important role in the early years of the country's armed forces. However, during the Six-Day War in 1967, it became clear that the AMX-13's armor wasn't strong enough against the Soviet T-54 and T-55 tanks used by Egypt and Syria. I don't know why they'd expect the 40mm armor to withstand the 185mm penetration power of the T-54's D-10T cannon in the first place, but, well, after that, Israel stopped using the AMX-13 and sold many of them to Singapore. The AMX-13 was also used during the 1965 Indo-Pakistani War. In the Battle of Asal Uttar, Indian forces used their AMX-13 tanks along with Centurions to win a major victory against Pakistan's Patton tanks. In Latin America, the AMX-13 was used during the Dominican Civil War in 1965. Both the Loyalist and Rebel forces had the tank, and some were destroyed by US forces when they intervened. The AMX-13 was also used in Morocco's Western Sahara conflict and in the Lebanese Civil War, where it was used by both the regular army and different militias fighting in the war. The Swiss army bought 200 AMX-13s in 1951, calling them Leichte Panzer 51. At that time, Switzerland's tanks were old, so getting the AMX-13 was a quick way to modernize their armed forces. Switzerland used the AMX-13 in light tank battalions, mostly for reconnaissance missions. They kept these tanks until 1980, when they sold them to Singapore, as the designs had become outdated by then. The AMX-13 chassis was very adaptable, which led to many different versions of the tank. These included self-propelled guns like the F3 155mm howitzer, anti-aircraft systems such as the AMX-13 DCA, armored personnel carriers, and recovery vehicles. One of the most important versions of the AMX-13, SS-11, which had anti-tank guided missiles, making it much more deadly against modern tanks. By the time production stopped in 1985, the AMX-13 had become one of the most successful light tanks ever. Even though its armor was thin and it didn't have modern protection systems like NBC, its speed, firepower and versatility made it popular with many countries. Even though many countries have retired the AMX-13 from active service, it's still being used in some parts of the world. French manufacturers have offered upgrades to keep the tank running for several nations. Countries like Peru, Singapore and Ecuador continue to use the AMX-13 either in upgraded versions or for special roles, and its strong design has helped it stay useful even with the new tank technology coming out. The AMX-13's legacy isn't just about how long it's been around or how many countries used it. It also taught important lessons about light tank design. Its oscillating turret, though not widely copied, showed a new way to think about tank guns, and its versatility set a standard for post-war light tanks, proving that even small, lightly armored vehicles can be effective in battle if used in the right way. Anyways, that was all I had to say for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think I said anything that is not right or you think I should have added any additional information to this video, please let me know in the comments and share your knowledge. Besides that, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.